Greetings and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit about remineralization. Now, what am I referring to exactly when I say remineralization? Well, if in our tanks we keep any form of stony corals, whether it's acropora, monopora, any of the LPS corals like favia, brain corals, anything like that, all of these corals require remineralization because as they grow, they uptake calcium and carbonate, which we commonly refer to as alkalinity. They remove it or uptake it from the water in our tank, and as a result we have to replace that if they're going to continue to grow and thrive. Now, throughout my reef keeping journey, I've employed a few different methods. One method for a brief time was the use of kalkwasser, whereby you just simply mix it up and use that as your auto top off water, and in the process you replenish the calcium and carbonate or alkalinity in the tank's water. But for the majority of the time that I've been keeping stony corals, what I use actually is the 2-part or 3-part method. And in that, I've utilized the Red Sea Foundation Calcium Plus additive, where I just mix it in with RODI water and it creates a calcium solution that's dosed to the tank every day automatically. And for a carbonate solution or alkalinity, I've gone ultra old school and just simply use baking soda. Now, you can use just baking soda alone by just mixing it in with RODI water and dosing it to the tank. But what I've done is I take the baking soda and I cook it. I literally put it in a pan and put it in the oven at about 250, 275 degrees and let it cook in there for roughly an hour. What that does is effectively burn off some of the carbon dioxide in the baking soda, and you end up with what's called soda ash. And I mix that with RODI water and use that to replenish the carbonate or alkalinity in the tank. But this year I've made a change. Instead of the 2-part or 3-part, which, let me put this aside, instead of using that and instead of using kalkwasser, I've started using Tropic Marin's All-For-Reef. Now, All-For-Reef is a somewhat different animal, so to speak, when it comes to dosing, because unlike 2-part, which incorporates for calcium, calcium chloride, and for alkalinity, sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate, All-For-Reef utilizes calcium formate. Calcium formate differs from them in that the formate process actually requires the interaction of bacteria in your tank in order to convert it into carbonate or alkalinity. They, so to say, metabolize it and perform a chemical change to it, whereby it then can be utilized by the corals in our tank. Now, All-For-Reef doesn't just handle calcium and alkalinity in our tanks. It also supplies magnesium as well for the chemistry in our tank. And in addition to that, it also provides trace elements for the corals in our tank. Essentially the same trace elements that are made available in the Tropic Marin A and K supplements as well. Now, there's one interesting point that needs to be made about All-For-Reef, and I'm still trying to find a sweet spot with it. If you use an illustration and say you're on the water and you're trying to get around on the water in a vehicle, if you're on, let's say, a jet ski, you can maneuver left, right, up and down, so to speak, very easily. But if you're piloting an oil tanker, it's not so quick to respond to changes. You want to stop, you got to start that process way down the road, so to speak, or down the water. Well, it's kind of like that with All-For-Reef, because it's not what I consider the best product for making quick changes to the water chemistry, because in order for this to be effective, again, it has to be metabolized by bacteria. And that process can take as little as maybe 12 hours and as long as maybe even a couple of days for the change to take place. So if you're in a position where you need to or want to move quickly in terms of adjusting the chemistry of your water, then maybe, yeah, you throw in a little bit of the calcium or alkalinity solution that you would normally use in 2-part. It's kind of the same principle if you're operating a calcium reactor. They're not the best tools for making fast adjustments to the water chemistry, but they're really effective once you have it dialed in at maintaining a rock solid chemistry, whatever the numbers you may be shooting for. And again, that's the case with All-For-Reef. Now, mixing All-For-Reef is a fairly simple process. There's a set amount that you use. In fact, it's 6 level scoops. If I open this up here, the provided scoop, it's 6 level scoops for every 1 liter of RODI water. Essentially 6 for every quart or so of water. Now, in my case, I use All-For-Reef in a powdered form. It also comes, and originally came, in a liquid form, but I find that the powdered form is much more economical than the liquid form. In fact, when I buy mine, I pay roughly $46, $47 for this container here. I forget how much actually comes in it, but there is a larger container for All-For-Reef for the powdered form. But with this, I'm able to make roughly 1.25 gallons, maybe almost 1.5 gallons of solution, and that lasts me for months. Now, again, like I said, mixing is fairly simple. In the case of this, again, it's 6 scoops for every liter of water, and in here I have 2 liters because I'm getting close to the time where I need to replenish my reservoir for the All-For-Reef. So in my case, I'm going to mix 12 scoops in to this water. 1, 2, and it should be noted, this All-For-Reef powder kind of has a consistency somewhere between, I'd call, shaved ice and wet salt, sort of. It's not a true dry powder, but I guess that's probably attributed to the magnesium component to it. Yeah, That's number 3. Okay, and once we have that in there, I'll use my high-tech stirring implement to get the mixing process started. And All-For-Reef mixes fairly quickly. And we'll come back once I'm done mixing. And after mixing for a few minutes, it's fairly clear now, but I'll give it a little more time to settle out before replenishing the bottles under the tank. So now the question, is All-For-Reef for you? Well, if you have a small tank that requires remineralization, you can maybe go with the liquid form of All-For-Reef. But if you have a larger tank, I absolutely would recommend you go with the powdered version. It provides calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, and trace elements. I've been using it for at least the past 6-7 months, and I plan to continue using it because I think it's a very effective solution for remineralization. Well, if you stuck with me up to this point in the video, as always, I really appreciate it. And if this is your first time joining us, I ask, please, if you consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like button as well, and if you're so inclined, leaving a comment. All of this would go a long ways with helping the channel grow within the YouTube algorithm so that these videos can be shared with more and more people. Well, my name is Ed. Thanks for watching, and take care.